Captain Jeho Park stood at the viewing window of the Earth ship Star Voyager, watching the massive space station of the Galactic Council grow larger. The station looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, with long petal-like sections spreading out from its center. This was humanity's big moment, their first official meeting with the Galactic Council. "Captain, the alien ships are scanning us again," said Commander Sun Li, looking up from her screen. She was the ship's weapons expert, and she didn't like how the alien ships kept studying their vessel. Jeho nodded calmly. "Let them scan. They won't find anything we don't want them to see." He smiled a little, knowing that their ship's best technology was hidden behind clever shields. The Star Voyager moved closer to the station, surrounded by 5 alien ships. These ships belonged to the Krav Empire, one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. The Krav ships were huge. Each one was 4 times bigger than the human ship. They were covered in large weapon ports that glowed with bright purple energy. "They're trying to scare us," said Taiwan Kim, the young engineer who stood at his station checking the ship's systems. "Look at how they're showing off their weapons." Jeho watched as one of the Krav ships fired its weapons at a small asteroid, turning it to dust. It was clearly a display meant to impress or frighten the humans. "Sir," called Yu Jin Song from the science station, "I finished analyzing their weapon blast. It's just a basic plasma weapon. Powerful, but very wasteful. They used enough energy to power a small city for a day just to destroy that little rock." The captain nodded again. This was exactly what they had expected. The aliens liked big, flashy displays of power. They didn't care about being efficient. A voice came through their communication system. It spoke in perfect Earth standard, thanks to the translation computers. "Human vessel Star Voyager, you have permission to dock at Bay 17. Follow the guide lights." As they moved toward their parking spot, Jeho gathered his team for a final briefing. "Remember," he said, looking at each crew member, "they think we're new to space travel. They think we're primitive. Let them think that, for now." The docking went smoothly. When the airlock doors opened, Jeho led his team onto the station. They were met by a group of aliens. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. And the Krav representatives were large creatures with tough gray skin. The lead Krav, who introduced himself as War Chief, looked down at the humans with 3 eyes that glowed slightly. "Welcome to the Galactic Council Station," he said, but his tone wasn't very welcoming. "We hope your primitive ship didn't struggle too much with the journey." Commander Sunma's hand tightened on her tablet, but she kept her face calm. She knew their ship was far more advanced than it looked. As they walked to the meeting hall, aliens of different species watched them. Some whispered to each other, others pointed, and a few laughed. The humans pretended not to notice. The meeting hall was enormous, with seats for hundreds of alien representatives. The human team was given seats at the very back, far from the important council members. "Now then," the war chief announced loudly, "let us begin by discussing the humans' request to join the Galactic Council. First, they must prove they are advanced enough to join us. Perhaps a demonstration of their technology would be appropriate." Jeho stood up. This was the moment they had been waiting for. "We would be honored to demonstrate Earth's technology," he said politely. "But first, would the Krav Empire be willing to show us their latest weapons, so we can learn from your superior experience?" The war chief smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Of course, we would be happy to show you what real advanced weapons look like." Jeho and Sun Mai exchanged quick looks. The aliens had taken the bait. Soon they would learn that when it came to technology, humans had a few surprises in store. The war chief led everyone to the station's massive testing chamber. The room was as big as 10 football fields, with thick walls made to withstand powerful weapons. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in protected viewing areas high above the testing floor. "Watch carefully, humans," the war chief said, walking to a control panel. "This is what real military power looks like. Captain Jiho and his team stood in their designated viewing area. Commander Sun Mi kept her eyes on the testing floor, while Taiwan quietly took readings with a small device hidden in his sleeve. The first demonstration began. A huge Krav weapon, as tall as a 3-story building, rolled out onto the testing floor. It looked like a giant cannon made of black metal with purple energy flowing through clear tubes along its sides. "This is our planet breaker cannon," the war chief announced proudly. "It can destroy a small moon with one shot." The cannon fired at a test target. The blast was enormous, filling the chamber with bright purple light. When the light faded, the target and a large section of the reinforced wall behind it were completely gone. Many alien representatives clapped and cheered. The war chief looked at the humans, expecting to see fear or amazement on their faces. Instead, he saw them calmly taking notes. "Is something wrong?" he asked, his 3 eyes narrowing. "Are you not impressed?" "Oh, it's very impressive," Sun Mi said politely. "But may I ask how much power it uses?" The war chief waved his hand dismissively. "Power is no concern. We have entire planets dedicated to powering our weapons." Next, they showed off their battle suits. Each suit was 20 feet tall and covered in weapons. They stomped around the testing area, shooting at targets and smashing through walls. "Imagine an army of these," the war chief boasted. "Nothing can stand against them." Taiwan raised his hand. "How long can they operate?" 2 hours at full power, the war chief answered. "More than enough time to crush any enemy." The demonstrations continued. The Krav showed off huge missiles that could think for themselves, shields that could stop any known weapon, and robots that could tear through steel like paper. After 2 hours, the war chief stood before the humans again. "Now you see why the Krav Empire is the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Your primitive weapons must seem like children's toys compared to ours." Captain Jiho stepped forward. "Thank you for the impressive demonstration," he said. "Would you be interested in seeing some of our technology?" The war chief laughed, and many other aliens joined in. "Of course. It's only fair to let you try, even if your weapons are basic." He looked at the other representatives. "Perhaps we could all use some entertainment." "Excellent," Jiho said. "Commander Sun Mi will handle our demonstration. We'll need 1 hour to set up." As the humans walked back to their ship to prepare, Yujin whispered to Sun Mi, "Did you see how inefficient their weapons are? All that power wasted on looking impressive." Sun Mi nodded. "They won't be laughing soon. Should we show them the drones?" "Not the drones," Taiwan said with a small smile. "Let's show them the mirrors." The team gathered in a quiet corner of their ship. Captain Jiho looked at each of them. "Remember, we want to teach them a lesson, but we don't want to make enemies. Show them enough to earn respect, but keep our best technology hidden." As they prepared their equipment, aliens gathered in the viewing areas again, talking and laughing about what the primitive humans might show them. None of them noticed the tiny dots of light that were already spreading throughout the testing chamber, too small for their sensors to detect. The war chief's voice boomed through the chamber. "You have 1 hour, humans. Try to make it interesting at least." Sun Mi checked her tablet one last time. Everything was ready. "Oh, don't worry," she said quietly. "It will be very interesting indeed." Inside the Star Voyager's preparation room, Commander Sun Mi and her team worked quickly and quietly. The room was filled with neat rows of small devices that looked like simple metal spheres, each no larger than a tennis ball. Dr. Hae-Nul Choi, their quantum physics expert, carefully checked the quantum communication links between each sphere. "The network is stable," she reported. "All units are synchronized." Taiwan was programming the final commands into his tablet. "The mirror system is ready," he said. "I've set up the light-bending fields exactly as we planned." Captain Jiho entered the room. "The war chief is getting impatient," he informed them. "He's telling everyone that we're probably having technical difficulties." Sun Mi smiled as she picked up one of the spheres. "Let him think that. Are the nanofabricators in position?" Jin checked her readings. Yes, the microscopic builders have created all the anchor points we need in the testing chamber. No one has noticed them. The Krav's sensors are too focused on looking for big energy signatures. The team gathered around a holographic display showing the testing chamber. Hundreds of tiny dots marked where they had already placed their technology. While the aliens were busy watching the Krav's loud demonstrations, the humans had been quietly preparing. Remember, Jaiho said, we're not just showing them weapons, we're showing them how humans think differently. He looked at each team member. The Krav believe that bigger is better. They think more power means more strength. We'll show them why they're wrong. Hanul held up her tablet, showing complex quantum calculations. Their weapons waste so much energy, she said. They're like someone using a cannon to kill a fly. Our system only uses the exact amount of power needed. No waste, no extra noise, no wasted heat. A voice came through their communication system. 30 minutes remaining, humans. Please try not to embarrass yourselves too much. Sun Mei pressed a button on her tablet. Around the testing chamber, thousands of microscopic robots began their final preparations. They were too small to see, but they were building something incredible. They think technology has to be big and loud to be powerful, Tadwan said, making final adjustments. They'll never expect what we're about to show them. Jin looked up from her screen. The quantum field is stable. Energy systems are running at optimal levels. Everything is ready. Captain Jeho nodded. Time to show them what human ingenuity looks like. Sun Mai, you'll lead the demonstration. Hey Newell, monitor the quantum network. Taiwan, keep the mirror systems synchronized. Jin, watch their reactions and adjust our shields if needed. The team started moving their equipment to the testing chamber. As they walked, they could hear the alien representatives talking and laughing above them. Many were making bets about how quickly the humans would fail. Look how small their devices are, one alien called out. They can't possibly do anything impressive with those toys. The war chief stood at his command station, looking down at the humans with all three eyes. We are waiting, he said. Though I don't see how those little spheres can compare to real weapons. Sun Me placed the first sphere in the center of the testing area. It floated quietly, giving off a soft blue light. It looked simple, almost plain, compared to the massive alien weapons that had been shown earlier. What you're about to see, she announced to the watching crowd, is how humans solve problems. We don't believe in using more power than necessary. We believe in being clever instead of wasteful. Please, watch carefully. She pressed a button on her tablet. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The war chief opened his mouth to make another mocking comment. Then the air itself began to change. The single floating sphere in the center of the testing chamber began to spin slowly. As it turned, the air around it seemed to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The alien audience leaned forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. First, Commander Sunmei announced, we will demonstrate our understanding of energy manipulation. She pressed another button on her tablet. The sphere released a soft pulse of light. When the light touched the chamber walls, it didn't stop or bounce back. Instead, it passed right through them, as if the walls weren't there at all. Impossible, the war chief shouted. Our walls are designed to stop any energy weapon. We're not using a weapon, Sun Mai explained calmly. We're using light itself in a way you haven't seen before. Dr. Hay Newell monitored her quantum readings. The system is working perfectly, she reported to Captain Jao. The nano network is responding exactly as planned. The sphere continued spinning, and suddenly, the entire chamber seemed to fill with mirrors. Everywhere the aliens looked, they saw reflections of themselves and the testing chamber. But these weren't ordinary mirrors. They were made of light itself. Now, Sun Mei continued, please observe what happens when we apply our technology to defense. She nodded to Tadwan. The young engineer activated a sequence on his tablet. The war chief, trying to show he wasn't impressed, fired a blast from his personal weapon at the central sphere. The purple energy bolt flew straight toward the human device. Just before it hit, the bolt disappeared. The entire audience gasped. Where did it go? Someone shouted. Sun Mi pointed to a spot near the ceiling. The same purple bolt appeared there, shooting harmlessly into a designated target area. We didn't stop your energy bolt, she explained. We simply moved it somewhere else. No force field needed. No massive power consumption required. The war chief's three eyes blinked rapidly. But that's not possible. You can't just move energy like that. Actually, Yu Jin said, stepping forward with her data readings, we can. And we only used about 1% of the power your weapons waste. Efficiency is more important than raw power. To demonstrate further, Sun Mi activated the rest of their system. Thousands of tiny lights appeared throughout the chamber, each one no bigger than a grain of sand. They began moving in perfect formation, creating complex patterns in the air. These are our quantum-linked drones, she explained. Each one is connected to all the others. They think and move as one. And they can do this. The lights suddenly formed a perfect copy of the war chief's prized planet breaker cannon, except this copy was made entirely of light. When Sun Mi gave the command, the light cannon fired. Its beam was small and precise, cutting a tiny, perfect hole through a test target without damaging anything around it. Your cannon uses enough power to run a city for a year, Sun Mi said. Ours uses less power than it takes to run a kitchen appliance. And it's more accurate. The alien representatives sat in stunned silence. The war chief's gray skin had turned a pale shade of white. He started to speak, then stopped, then tried again. How? He finally managed to ask. How did you develop this technology? Captain Jiho stepped forward. We learned long ago that bigger isn't always better. When you have limited resources, you learn to be clever. Every human invention is built on this idea. Do more with less. The humans could see the change in how the aliens were looking at them now. The laughter and mockery were gone, replaced by expressions of wonder. And in some cases, fear. Commander Sun Mi stepped forward to continue the demonstration. The thousands of light points around the chamber began to move again, this time forming intricate patterns that filled the entire space. The alien audience watched in complete silence as the display unfolded before them. What you are seeing is not just for show, Sun Mi explained. Each point of light is a fully functional combat unit. They can work alone or together. They can adapt to any situation instantly. She turned to address the war chief directly. Would you like to see what they can really do? The war chief had regained some of his composure. Yes, he said, trying to sound confident. Show us everything. Captain Jiho nodded to his team. Taiwan and Dr. He Newell began entering commands into their tablets. The quantum network responded immediately. The points of light suddenly transformed into what looked like a flowing river of energy that moved through the air. Please deploy your strongest shield, Sun Mi requested politely. We want to demonstrate something important. The war chief activated the crab's most powerful defensive technology. A purple energy barrier appeared in the center of the chamber. This shield has never been broken, he declared. It can withstand the combined fire of 10 planet breaker cannons. Sun Mi smiled. We're not going to try to break it, she said. We're going to go around it. The river of light approached the shield. Instead of hitting it, the light simply flowed through it as if the shield wasn't there. The aliens gasped again. The war chief's three eyes widened in shock. How is this possible? He demanded. Nothing can pass through our shields. Your shields are designed to stop energy and matter, Yu Jin explained. But we've learned to use something different, something between energy and matter. Your shields can't stop it because they don't know what it is. To demonstrate further, Sun Mi had their system create multiple targets throughout the chamber. The light river split into hundreds of smaller streams, each one hitting its target with perfect accuracy. Not a single shot missed or caused unnecessary damage. This is why we don't need big weapons, Captain Jio said. Our technology adapts. It thinks. It finds the most efficient way to achieve its goal. Dr. Haynewell stepped forward with her quantum readings. Your weapons use brute force, she said. They try to overpower everything in their path. Our technology is more like water. It flows around obstacles, finds the path of least resistance, and still gets the job done. The demonstration continued. The human technology showed how it could change from offensive to defensive configurations instantly. It could create impenetrable barriers using barely any power. It could redirect enemy fire back at its source. And most impressively, it could do all of this while using less energy than the aliens used to power their ships' lighting systems. The true power of human technology, Sun Ma concluded, isn't in how much damage it can do. It's in how little power it needs to achieve its goals. We learned long ago that the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the biggest weapons. It's the one that needs the smallest weapons to maintain peace. The war chief stood silent for a long moment. Around the chamber, other alien representatives were talking quietly among themselves, their earlier mockery completely forgotten. Some were already making notes, clearly interested in learning more about human technology. Finally, the war chief spoke. We may have underestimated your species, he admitted. His voice was quieter now, more respectful. Perhaps there is more to power than size and strength. Security Chief Do-hyun Kang stepped forward to address the gathered alien representatives. The testing chamber had returned to its normal state, but the impact of the human demonstration remained clear on every alien face. Many of you wondered why humans developed such different technology, Do-hyun began. The answer lies in our history. Earth has limited resources. We couldn't afford to waste energy or materials. We had to think differently. The Galactic Council members listened carefully. Even the war chief remained quiet, his earlier arrogance replaced by thoughtful attention. On Earth, Do-hyun continued, we discovered that the most powerful weapons weren't always the largest. The most effective tools weren't always the most complex. Success came from understanding efficiency. Yu Jin displayed a hologram showing Earth's technological development. Our earliest weapons were simple sticks and stones, she explained. But we learned to use them with skill and strategy. As we advanced, we kept this principle. Why use 100 units of energy when one unit, properly applied, could do the job? The war chief stepped closer to examine the hologram. But surely in space combat, overwhelming force is necessary, he asked, though his tone was no longer challenging. Captain Joho smiled. Let us demonstrate. He nodded to Commander Sunmai, who activated their system again. The small points of light reappeared, but this time they formed a miniature space battle. The aliens watched as a huge holographic warship, modeled after Krav design, fired massive energy weapons at a much smaller human vessel. The human ship didn't try to match the Krav ship's power. Instead, it used the quantum light technology to redirect the enemy's own energy back at specific weak points. You see, Sunmai explained, we don't need to generate massive power. We can use our opponent's energy against them. It's like in ancient human martial arts, using the enemy's strength to defeat them. Dr. Haynewell added technical details that even the most advanced alien scientists found fascinating. She explained how human quantum systems could analyze attack patterns, adapt defenses, and respond with perfect precision. Your weapons are impressive, she acknowledged to the war chief. They show great power, but they also show your weaknesses. Every blast tells us exactly how your systems work. Every attack gives us more information to use. The war chief's 3 eyes blinked rapidly as understanding dawned. You're saying that the more we fight, the more we learn, Taiwan finished. Our systems absorb information from every encounter. They grow smarter, more efficient. The longer a battle lasts, the more advantage we gain. This revelation caused excited murmurs among the alien representatives. Several began taking notes frantically. Others were already trying to make appointments to discuss technology exchange programs. Captain Joho watched all this with satisfaction. The humans had achieved their goal, not to humiliate or threaten, but to earn respect and understanding. The galaxy would never again mistake human technology for primitive tools. We hope, he addressed the assembly. This demonstration helps everyone understand why Earth deserves a place in the Galactic Council. We may do things differently, but our methods are effective. The war chief, showing unexpected wisdom, turned to address his fellow council members. Perhaps, he said slowly, we have all become too focused on power alone. The humans have shown us there are other paths to advancement. John walked down the dark street. The night was cold and quiet. He pulled his coat tighter around him. His footsteps echoed off the buildings. Suddenly, John heard a noise behind him. He turned around quickly. In the dim light, he saw a shadowy figure dart into an alley. John's heart started beating faster. He wasn't sure if he should investigate or hurry home. Curiosity got the better of him. John slowly approached the alley. He peeked around the corner. At first he didn't see anything. Then he noticed a faint light coming from behind a dumpster. John took a few careful steps into the alley. As he got closer, he heard whispering voices. The light was coming from a small lantern on the ground. Gathered around it were 3 rough-looking men. They noticed John and stopped talking. "What do you want?" growled the largest man. I was just walking by," stammered John nervously. "I didn't mean to intrude." The men glanced at each other. The one who had spoken stood up. He took a menacing step toward John. "This is a private meeting," the man said in a low voice. "I suggest you forget you saw us and move along. Understand?" John nodded quickly. He backed away, then turned and hurried out of the alley. He walked quickly down the street, glancing over his shoulder. Once he was a safe distance away, John slowed down. Who were those men? What were they doing in the alley in the middle of the night? It was all very mysterious. But one thing was clear to John. Whatever those men were involved in, he wanted no part of it. He had stumbled into something dangerous. It was best to stay away and not get mixed up in their suspicious activities. John continued home, trying to put the unsettling encounter out of his mind. This mysterious scene with the shadowy men in the alley adds an element of suspense and intrigue to the story. The reader wonders who the men are and what they are up to. John's decision to avoid getting involved sets up potential future complications if their paths cross again. The encounter leaves both John and the reader uneasy and builds tension as the story continues. The next morning, John tried to focus on his work at the office. However, his mind kept wandering back to the strange encounter from the previous night. He couldn't shake the feeling that those men were up to something illegal or dangerous. Around lunchtime, John's coworker Sarah knocked on his door. "Hey John, a few of us are going out to grab some food. Want to join?" she asked. John hesitated, then replied, "Sure, that sounds good. I could use a break." As they walked to the nearby sandwich shop, John debated whether to tell Sarah about what he had seen. She was always good at giving advice. He decided to bring it up casually. "Hey Sarah, something kind of weird happened last night," John began. He described his late-night walk and how he had stumbled upon the mysterious men in the alley. Sarah listened intently, her brow furrowed. When John finished, she looked thoughtful. "That does sound suspicious," she agreed. "It was probably smart not to get involved. But if you're really worried, maybe you should report it to the police. They might want to look into it." John frowned. "I didn't actually see them doing anything illegal," he pointed out. "It would just be my word that they seemed shady. I doubt the police would do anything." "You're probably right," said Sarah. "Well, just be careful and maybe avoid that area at night, okay? But try not to stress about it too much." John nodded. Talking it over with Sarah made him feel a little better. She was right that he shouldn't let it consume his thoughts. When John got home from work that evening, he noticed an unfamiliar car parked across the street from his house. He peered at it curiously. It was an old, nondescript sedan. John didn't recognize it from the neighborhood. As he watched, the car's engine started and it drove slowly away. John stared after it until it turned a corner and disappeared from view. Was he being paranoid, or could that car have been watching his house? Were those men from the alley keeping tabs on him now? John took a deep breath and tried to calm his racing thoughts. He was jumping to conclusions. There were probably lots of reasonable explanations for a car he didn't recognize being parked on his street. He shouldn't let his imagination get carried away. Still, as John unlocked his front door and went inside, he couldn't completely dismiss the uneasy feeling that lingered in his gut. He hoped he was just being overly cautious, but he would definitely be on alert and more aware of his surroundings from now on. Something strange was going on, and John had accidentally stumbled right into the middle of it.